Hey everyone, it's Killlyx. It's been a while, but I'm back with my updated top 10 anime protagonists. After reflecting and rewatching, I've reworked my list to bring you a more definitive version. Just a warning, there will be obviously spoilers for the series we cover, and of course, know this, it's just my personal opinion. Without wasting any more time, let's get into the list. Luffy is just one of the most likable characters ever. His journey is one of the most fun to follow in all of fiction. What makes him so great is how multifaceted he is. We see him in many different lights, from his relationship with his crewmates to his interactions with his enemies. He's a character who forms connections not just with people, but with the world itself. Luffy has a complete idealization of the One Piece. Even though he doesn't really know what it is, he spent his entire life chasing something that may or may not even exist. But he doesn't need proof, he just believes. That's the core of who he is. Despite all his goofiness, Luffy understands the people he cares about better than anybody. Take his relationship with Sanji for an example. When Sanji left, Luffy didn't question it, he knew what mattered. He understood the bonds he had forged with his friends on such a deep level. Luffy's recent transformation with Gear 5 flips everything on its head. It's the inverse of his journey up until now. Becoming a god, the ultimate Luffy, his power is rooted in imagination, which works perfectly with his idealistic nature. He can literally create anything through sheer will, and that fits his beliefs perfectly. Shinji is the definition of an incredible character journey, from start to finish. One of the best aspects of his arc is the relationships he forms, and how he forms them. His connections, especially with Asuka, are almost forced at times, messy, but they are still extremely beautiful. At the beginning, Shinji is a total pipsqueak who doesn't see any value in himself. He finds bonds with people, but never sure if they're real or if they're just accepting him out of obligation due to the circumstances they are trapped in. He tries to present himself as a victim, someone trampled on by the villains in his life. Shinji feels more like a subject created by his father, but learns more and more over time that his father is a subject created by himself. Shinji's conclusion in the end of Evangelion on the beach is so deliberate. It ties into his complex relationship with Asuka. All he ever wanted is to feel warmth, some form of connection in his life. After this long, painful journey, Asuka gives it to him, even in the most chaotic, messed up way. But then comes the question, was it real? Was it fake? The answer is something Shinji can only find by reaching out and learning for himself. I love everything about this cutie, not gonna lie. Ice Kaguya is one of the best arcs ever, having so many of my favourite themes of self-acceptance. The idea that to be truly loved, you need to accept every part of yourself, the cold and the warm. It's the heart of her journey. Her relationship with Shirogane is a constant back and forth between two deeply troubled people who have no idea how to express themselves, in a series that otherwise completely open and expressive. That contrast makes their dynamic so compelling. Kaguya is trapped by expectations, and every time she tries to force her own freedom, it slips away from her again. She never truly breaks free until she accepts the fact that there is a part of her that she doesn't like. The key is realizing she is already accepted and no longer needs to fight for it. Without that acknowledgement, she'll never feel she has reached her goal. Also, she's just a cutie. At first, Simon seems weak, like he's just living in Kamiya's shadow, idolizing him, instead of forging his own path. But after Kamiya's death, he's forced to push forward, not just as Kamiya's successor, but as Simon the Digger. His journey is all about self-actualization, and Gurren Lagann ramps this up to 11, peak presentation. Simon's arc isn't just about stepping up, it's about becoming the true protagonist Kamiya always believed he could be. By the series' conclusion, he is not just stronger, he is a more complete, balanced version of Kamiya, someone who embodies the ideals but stands on his own. Almost every one of Simon's dynamics is deeply inspirational in some way. The symbolism of the drill piercing the heavens drives the entire journey, but by the end, he doesn't just break through the heavens, he becomes them. He ascends, to face the anti-spiral, the being that claims to have transcended heaven itself. In the final reveal, that he's been narrating the entire series the whole time, it brings everything full circle, cementing his place as the one who truly carries the legacy of Gurren Lagann.
My name is Hajime Hinata. I think I'm a grade ahead of you. But either way, nice to meet you.
Hajime is a peak merchant in every sense, but he's also just the greatest. His entire character arc gets completely recontextualized by the final trial, flipping everything on its head. The concept of the ultimate hope interacts with the rest of the series in some of the most fascinating ways. What makes him so compelling is how he exists at the center of everything. He's the one who created this entire killing game. He has no memory of it, but disconnect makes his relationship with the themes of hope and despair, with Nagato and Junko, so much richer, and leads to the moment, I am Hajime Hinata. At face value, it seems like rejection of his identity as Izuru Kamakura, but in reality it's the opposite. Like a Blade is me moment, it's not the denial, it's more the full acceptance. He's not just Hajime or Izuru, he's both, fully integrated into one person. Hajime's relationship with Nagato is probably the most interesting in the entire series. It's complicated, layered, and just so good. Nagato calls himself the ultimate hope, but in reality, he only has a single talent, one he perceives as completely useless. And meanwhile, Hajime sees himself as talentless, a total nobody, when in reality, he secretly holds every talent within him. He in Nagato's eyes, the ultimate ideal, everything Nagato has ever idolized, and everything the series has built up as the perfect existence. And when you reach the conclusion of Nagato's arc, it makes everything even more tragic, looking back at who and what Hajime really is. The entire dynamic takes an even more sadder and painful weight. One of the things I love most about Aragi is his journey towards self-actualization. He's got the self-sacrificial nature of a shonen protagonist, but in a series that isn't shonen at all. He throws himself into saving everyone, solving their problems, without ever addressing his own. And half the time he's fighting battles that don't even need to be fought. He does it because that's the kind of person he is. There's a false altruism to him, a desire to help, but isn't entirely selfless. Of course, anyone who's seen Monogatari knows the series quite doesn't shy away from Aragi's more questionable moments. There's more inappropriate stuff he does to many of the girls in the series, but what makes him so interesting is how it contrasts with his relationship with Shinji Gahara and, more importantly, Shinobu. His dynamic with Shinobu is one of the most fascinating parts of his character. It's not just a bond, it's about what it means to share a life with someone who's cursed by immortality. How that kind of existence destroys people. Even if you love someone, eternal life isn't some beautiful, idealized thing. The connection is built on the ultimate self-sacrifice, the burden of being the wounded ones, and the weight of that title introduced so early on shapes everything about him. More than anything, Ichigo's motivation is what pushes him forward. He's like a persona protagonist. His power comes from his bonds, from the connections he forms. His abilities only manifest in the first place because of his bond with Rukia, a relationship that starts small but grows into something massive. The influence spreads, inspiring others like Orihime, Chad, and Uryu to keep moving forward, and in turn, their growth feeds back into him, helping him reach his ultimate power. At the core of it all, the bond that matters the most is his connection with his mother Masaki. Everything leads back to that, and it's only when he fully understands that relationship he reaches his true self-actualization. One of my favourite things about Ichigo is how simple yet deeply human his motivations are. He's not driven by some grand ideology, he just wants to protect the people he cares about. But there are other sides to him, his layers that complicate his journey, his other mask, his other form, his hollow side. For so long, he sees it as his greatest enemy, the thing he needs to suppress. But in the end, he realizes it's not his weakness, it's his greatest strength, no matter what his greatest antagonists, Aizen and Yahaba, may try to convince him. More than anything else, what interests me about Gon is his morality. Hana always had a darker side to its narrative, but it's in the Chimera Ant arc that Gon's own darkness fully comes to the surface. It's not that it wasn't always there, it's that he never let it show in this way before. I love his relationship with his friends, but what really stands out is how he interacts with people in general. Gon doesn't care whether someone is good or bad in the moral sense. What matters to him is how they treat him, and whether he cares about them. He can hang out with killers, criminals, whoever, and it doesn't faze him. His morality isn't based on what's right or wrong, in a traditional sense. It's personal, in the most selfish way possible. His indirect dynamic with Miriam is fascinating. They never directly interact, but their arcs parallel in a way that makes him feel connected. And then there's his fight with Pito, one of the rawest, most emotional moments in the anime. The fight isn't about revenge, it's about control. Gon will do anything to get what he wants, even if it means completely destroying himself in the process, as long as he feels like he's the one making the choice. He doesn't care about the consequences. And I have to mention, his voice performance is easily one of the best in any anime. Every emotion, every breakdown, every moment of rage, or despair, it all hits so hard.
I'm Shuichi Saihara. They call me the ultimate detective, but...
Shuichi Saihara moves me. He's another Danganronpa main character. But what makes his journey so compelling is how hesitant he is to take on that role. From the start, he's forced into a protagonist position, but constantly struggles with it. Every time it seems like he's fully stepping onto that role, something pulls him back. Whether it's his own doubts, the way other characters push him forward, he tries to hide from it. Like when he positions himself as Kaito's sidekick instead of leading on his own. But no matter how much he resists, the story keeps forcing him to evolve. His dynamic with Maki is fascinating. At times it almost feels like she's a stand-in for Kaede, which Shuichi fills that role for Kaido. There's the sense that they're both dealing with the absence of someone important, and in a way, they reflect those missing figures back at each other. Then there's his relationship with Kaito. Kaito is everything Shuichi struggles to be. Loud, confident, and unwavering, he pushes Shuichi forward constantly, reinforcing the idea that he should take the protagonist role. But even with all the existential pressure, Shuichi still hesitates. It's not about being told to step up, it's about whether he can, and whether he wants to. The idea of Shuichi as the ultimate who destroys fiction, layered throughout the entire story. He doesn't just take on the role of a protagonist, he takes on the weight of the entire Danganronpa franchise. Every second of screen time, every twist and revelation, all build towards something, making him the so-called hero. And even there's Chapter 6 Shuichi. He's hard to pin down, but in the best way possible. There's something about him that makes the final stretch confusing, but in a way that makes me excited to keep digging deeper into his character. Before we reach the number 1 spot, I want to briefly mention 3 honourable mentions. Johnny Joestar has one of the best character journeys out there. His arc is incredibly touching, and his conclusion is both powerful and realistic. His relationship with his best friends is one of the most grounded and meaningful in the series, making his growth even more impactful. Shiro Emiya is originally a character I really disliked when watching the anime, but when I read the visual novel, Shiro's most defining trait is his unwavering will, his dedication to sticking to his beliefs. About what strength is, no matter the cost, the dynamics in the visual novel are fascinating, sometimes toxically beautiful, but they're beautiful nonetheless. His journey is a deep exploration of ideals at the cost of holding on to them. Thorfinn's journey is incredibly motivational. It's about learning what truly matters, starting with revenge, but realizing there are far stronger and wiser ways to live. As a child, he made many enemies, driven by his quest for vengeance, but his journey of self-realization pushes him to become stronger and far greater. Hinata Sho's journey is one of the most motivational and beautiful of all time. What makes it so powerful is the realism attached to it. His evolution isn't just a personal arc, it's the very concept of evolution in motion. Everything in Haikyuu exists to constantly reflect that, reinforcing how much he grows and how the process everything Hinata does mirrors Furudate's own growth as a writer. The whole point of the Kageyama dynamic is that they force each other to evolve. Their journeys run parallel, but they start completely different places. One is hard-working, driven underdog, and the other is a natural talent who doesn't know how to use his own ability. Oikawa calls Hinata a monster because he has everything but doesn't know how to control it. That contrast is what makes their dynamic work. They push each other in ways no one else can. Hoshiyama is the perfect foil to Hinata. He comes into the story late, but immediately proves to Hinata that he's everything that Hinata wanted to be, but better in almost every aspect. He is the opponent that forces Hinata to evolve, the challenge that makes him realize he still has further to go. It's the phoenix versus the seagull, the firebird versus the waterbird. Hinata has to become something greater to surpass him. The Little Giant takes Hinata's arc even further. The Little Giant was this idea of greatness that Hinata built up in his head, but when he finally meets him, the reality is completely different. The guy isn't some superhuman player, he's just a regular person, a normal player who was good, but not some legendary level. That moment forces Hinata to see the concept of a little giant was something he created as a kid. It was never about becoming him. It was about what the dream represented. The moment Hinata understands that is the moment that he moves forward on his own path. And that's my updated top 10 protagonists. These characters left a lasting impact on me, and I hope you found some favourites, or maybe even some new ones to check out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who did I miss, and who would make your list? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.